Well, today we are going to make a moringa smoothie, and there are a number of things you can do to modify the taste a little bit here and there, so get creative, but this is just a base that you can use as an example. So we've got our moringa, dried moringa leaves here, and these were dehydrated in this Excalibur dehydrator that you may or may not see on there, but I'm going to show you that here's some dried moringa leaves that were just drying on one of the trays. So I could make them into powder, but it's all the same thing whether it's leaves or powder. So we're just going to use the leaves. So what we're going to do here is you could use any kind of milk, rice milk, almond milk. This is coconut milk, and you can even use fresh coconut milk, which is the absolute best if you can get a young coconut for this. And we are going to use the Vitamix to blend it all up. And for today's smoothie we have a frozen banana. You could use regular, just fresh bananas as well. So we're going to make, this is going to be a recipe for 2 people, the smoothie. So it would be half a banana per serving. We're just going to put this in the Vitamix. And then you can do this to taste, kind of play around with it some. I'm going to start out with half a teaspoon per serving of this moringa. One thing that I really recommend for people when you start using moringa is it's touted as, you know, this amazing plant, which it is, but it's very potent. So you don't want to overdo it. I would start with a smaller amount, and if you feel you want to take more, you can. But some people will get so excited about it and go gung-ho and take a couple of heaping tablespoons, and that would probably be the equivalent of like drinking 8 ounces of wheatgrass juice. And I have a healthy respect for wheatgrass. It's very cleansing, it's very nourishing, but too much is not a good scene. And moringa I would treat the same way. It is very powerful, very potent. I've heard a lot of amazing stories from a lot of the people that I have talked to that have been using moringa in their lives. One person, he is from a country in Africa where it grows naturally, and he would just take a couple of little leaves off the tree every day, and he said that completely normalized his digestive system. So anyway, that's why we're going to start out with just half a teaspoon, and you could do half a teaspoon of powder or half a teaspoon of dried leaves. So I'm just going to put them in here a little bit, and you can see we're going to put it in here. Doesn't seem like a lot, but you can make this smoothie several times a day if you wanted to. I would just start out slow. Okay, so here's 2, so that's 1 teaspoon. And then I like putting cardamom in it. And you can use either already powdered cardamom, or you can use the pods. I like the pods because it stays fresher that way. So I'll put a couple per serving, so we've got 4 of these little seed pods I'm going to throw in there. And then we'll put in half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Oh, we just ended up with cinnamon in the moringa, so we'll be making a lot more of this. So, and then a 1/4 teaspoon. Actually, what we need to do is twice, because we're doing it for 2 servings. So let's do another one of these. And then we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and I'm actually going to take the half teaspoon this time, so we can have that for 2 servings. Just put it in there. And then I'm going to put some turmeric in there, which is another really awesome medicinal. This also is going to be a 1/4 teaspoon per serving, so it's going to be half a teaspoon. And you could put other stuff in here like astragalus or tulsi, holy basil, ashwagandha. There's all kinds of amazing superfood herbs out there that you can modify this recipe with. And then I'm just going to take a cup of this coconut milk, but actually I'm just going to pour some in, so we don't need to really measure too much. We can look on the side here. Okay, that's about 2 cups. And I'm just going to turn it on with the Vitamix until it's blended. Make sure that cardamom gets plenty ground up in there, and it is ready to drink. This is something so easy to do that tastes awesome, and you could do this easily every day and enjoy having fresh moringa. And the nice thing about this drink too is that there's a lot of people talking about moringa tea out there. And if you don't cook your moringa tea, or you're not cooking the moringa, you're actually getting more nutrients out of it than if you have to boil the water. So, shall we? Cheers! Delicious. Wow. Okay, so here we are making dinner. And we're going to do some moringa tea. We're going to make some drumsticks. These are the pods that were harvested during the season, and they have been frozen. And so we're going to put these in some water to boil. And then we've got some moringa leaves. These were also frozen too, harvested from the season before it got freezing. And then here's some other things that we're going to do. We've got some moringa soup we're going to make. This is the moringa that we're going to make into tea. So why don't we do that first? I've already basically boiled the water, and I don't like to have it boiling for too long. There are many different ways to make moringa tea. One of the things, if you don't want to lose any of the nutrients in it, you could just make warm water, put it in, let it steep for 5 minutes or so, and then drink it. You can do that with the powder, and you can do that with the tea. I generally like to start with half a teaspoon, just because it's very potent and you don't want to overdo it. As you kind of get used to the moringa, you can start using a little more if you would like, but a little is very powerful. So don't think you have to take it by the tablespoonful. I've heard of people online doing that. Fine, but I also know people who try to do too much and then they just have way too much. It's like overdosing on wheatgrass. So you don't want that to happen. It's very cleansing. So what we're going to do first is take this teaspoon, and we're going to make 2 servings of the tea. So this has already been heated. It's just under boiling, and I'm just going to put some of this in here. You could do powder, or you could do the dried leaves. I'll just put it in like that. We could even do a little more since it's kind of fluffy because it's the leaves. So there we go. And all we're going to do is just let it sit and just steep for a few minutes. So, or you can let it steep for longer. You can even eat the moringa when you're done making the tea. I like the flavor of the tea, but you can also add other things in with it. We grow a lot of herbs out here, so I'll add moringa to whatever else I happen to be harvesting out of the garden. I love moringa. Peppermint tea is one of my favorites, but I do lemongrass, moringa, and you can add some. We grow sugar cane. You can sweeten it with sugar cane or any kind of sweetener, agave, whatnot. So there's just a lot you can do with it. And then, so let's take this, put it away here. Okay, so in this container, we'll do this one. I've got some, let's see, I've got some water here, and I'm going to put these moringa, they're called drumsticks, but they're basically the pods, it's the fruit. When these are young, they're very small, and you can eat them like green beans, or you can eat them like asparagus. You can actually eat the whole thing. And then as they get older, they start making like a woody outer. It's too tough to eat. So what will happen, you'll see later after this has cooked, is you'll actually scoop the inside out of this. So that's the point it's at right now. So we're just going to put these in the pot, and we are going to boil them for about 20 minutes. And I like to just, you can do it as a part of a stew, or you could just do it as some boiled moringa. And I do like to consume the broth as well. I don't waste any of that. So you want to use good water for that. And so I'm just going to put, this is just some veggie bouillon cubes that I like to give it a little extra flavor. So I'm going to put that in. And then you can add some salt and pepper if you want. I'll put a couple of these in there. And we'll be eating this with rice, which you can see is already cooked. It's on the back one. I really like to use glass pots as much as possible, but this is a stainless steel, so it's okay too. I stay away from the aluminum cooking ware or the Teflon coated stuff. Alright. So this is on high, and we're just going to let it kind of come to a boil. It's still frozen, so it'll take a little bit of time for that to do that. So in the meantime, I'm going to make this moringa soup, and this is a recipe that I grew up eating, that my grandparents would make and that my mother would make, and you can use just this as a basis, but then you can add other things to it. The main ingredients are some garlic, a piece of ginger, and I love ginger, so I put a lot in there, and then a couple of big tomatoes. We had some Roma tomatoes, so I put 4 of those in for here. And then you can add onions if you'd like. So we cut up an onion, and that's all ready to go in. And then 4 cups of the moringa. And you can still see I didn't do a great job of removing all the leaves from the stems. So when you eat it, you just don't eat the stems. I mean, because they're too hard, but it doesn't hurt to have some stems in there. And so this would be enough. So this is about 4 cups. So this would probably be for 4 people, we can say. And then you can add like 4 ounces of protein per person. Like I'm vegan, so I would use tofu or some vegetable type protein. But the moringa is very high in protein already, so you don't necessarily even need to add anything else. This has plenty. In fact, they use it in starving countries like in Africa to feed the children, the babies who are undernourished, to start gaining weight, and also the mothers who are, who have the babies. They may stop lactating, and then they can start giving them this, and then they start being able to breastfeed again. So this is a very good, high nutrition, just everything already, and high in protein that you really wouldn't need anything else. And I'm just going to show you this while I'm at it too. This is just some of these moringa flakes, and I like to just add these in. If I was making something else, I could just take some of these and sprinkle them in and add it to whatever I'm making. Sauces, anything. So that's a way you can incorporate moringa into just about any dish. You can really make any dish into a moringa dish that you use greens for. So you just replace this for your kale or your cabbage or whatever you might use. You can eat a lot more when it's cooked than when it's raw. It's very potent when it's raw, but when it gets cooked, it's a vegetable, and it doesn't have that wheatgrass sort of part to it. It's not over cleansing if you have it cooked. So we're just going to put all of this in here. Of course you can use this fresh when it's in season, but we're in the winter right now, so our trees have died back, and we've got a lot of this in the freezer. But you can also actually use dried leaves too, where it will reconstitute and just be like the fresh leaves in the pot. Okay, so we're just going to add all of this in. You could just cut up the garlic, but you could also, if you had a garlic press, put it in there and just kind of get it in there a little bit better. That just mixes it in a little bit better, so someone doesn't get a huge chunk of garlic. This one will do that too. And then the other ingredient that my mother would always put in there, it would always be moringa, garlic, ginger, and tomatoes. Those are like the main 4 ingredients. And then you can add other things as you like. So we did cut up some onions here, just a small onion. And then here's the tomatoes we're going to add in. And we'll just let this cook and it's just going to simmer for about 20 minutes while the other one is. What you can also do is, let me grab. The other thing that you can do is you can put the moringa in at the very end and just let it sit in there for a few minutes before you serve. So I like it both ways. I like to make the soup and have it really permeate in the soup, or to add it in at the very end. It's a matter of preference and taste. But the moringa is something that, in general, if you are making anything, you can tend to add it. If you're going to cook something for a long time, like cooking it for, say, I don't know, an hour or something, then you can put the moringa in towards the end, because it doesn't need a lot of time. So we're just going to let that cook, and then this tea is probably ready to serve up, so we can do that here. I'm just going to turn this on a little bit. We're still waiting on that. And off. I'm just going to put a little bit of salt and pepper in our soup that we're making here that's cooking. And this is Himalayan salt. It's a very good salt. It's all we use. Very pure, and it's mined. I believe it's out of India. India, Pakistan, I'm not sure where. There's this salt mountains. Yes. And it's just a very good salt. It's got all kinds of minerals in it. And then we're going to put a little bit of pepper in there too. And this is going to be eaten with rice and also with the pods. Just stir that up. Smelling good already. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, we're going to have some moringa tea. And this is what we put in the pot. I'd taken it off it's still warm, so it's just sitting here waiting to be served up. You could do this a number of different ways. You could have just put some of the tea in the cup and just covered it for a few minutes, but it's getting a little extra heat from the warm stove. And what I do, because this does not pour very easily, one of the ways is I'll use a little tea strainer, and I take a coffee mug, and this way I'm not spilling all over everything, and I just pour it through the tea strainer. And you can see when it's in the cup that it's actually got kind of a green tea-ish hue to it. And then you can sweeten this as you like. I personally just like it plain. And then if you want, after you drink it, you can eat the leaves. Or put some more water in and even brew it again. I've heard of people using a coffee maker to do it as well. They just put the tea into, instead of putting coffee into the little, what do they call it? The little paper coffee filter thing. And then they just pour it through, and then they drink what comes out. as it just going through. But I kind of like the idea of it just sitting in there a little bit longer and allowing everything to just go into the water. So if you look at this closely, you can see, maybe we can take a picture of it, you can see it's a little kind of a greenish tint. And another thing I like to mention is you can see how green these leaves are. You want to make sure that whatever moringa you're getting is fresh and green and not like a brownish dull color. That will show how fresh it is. So would you like to try some? I know it's hot. Okay, so here we've got our moringa soup, and it's got the garlic and ginger, onions, tomatoes, and moringa in it. And then you can add other things like potatoes or some protein, whatever else you might have. You can make like a stew out of it. And what we'll do here is we've actually put some of the, can you get that in the camera? We have put some of these pods, the fruit, or the drumsticks as they're called, on the plate. And we can eat these with rice. So I'm going to show you how you would open up one of these and eat it, because the outside is too tough to actually eat the whole thing. When they're younger you can eat them, but when they get older like this, you need to cut them open like this, and then you just scoop this out of it. That one is really hot. Let me get one that's not quite so hot. I'm going to burn my fingers here. So you open it up like that. And then see how all this is fleshy? You can actually scoop all of this out. And you've got the seeds in there, and you've got the flesh, and then you can eat this. And you can put a little bit of salt on it if you'd like, or if you had salt in the broth, you can just eat it the way it is. And I also like to eat the broth, so I don't throw any of it away. So I'm going to go ahead and eat some now. This is my favorite. This is what I loved to always eat when I would go visit my grandparents in Hawaii. I can eat a huge pot of this. I could eat every one of those. Okay, so now we have the moringa soup and we have the rice. So what I would normally do is put some rice, and then I put the soup. You can actually eat the soup like soup, actually have a bowl, but I really like pouring it over rice and adding a little bit of the juice, so it just kind of makes the rice a little bit mushy, I guess. So it becomes a part of the soup. And there we go. You can add soy sauce to this if you'd like to taste, or the salt and pepper, or any kind of seasonings you can add to this. And then these are just the stems, and you could just move those away if you don't want to have to chew on them, because they're just, you're going to have to spit them out if you do. But as you're eating, you can kind of get a little bit of the pieces out. It's not a big deal. It's not like they're toxic or anything. It's just, they get a little bit hard. Mmm.